Good morning, brothers and sisters. Dominic Lucero. I'm the instructor here at Boilermakers Local Lodge 549, Pittsburgh, California. I wanted to take some time to talk about measurements, and I want to do a whole entire playlist dedicated to measurements. Now, what we have here is your basic scale, something that you would see on your tape measure, just really blown up. And what I find is, to a lot of people, this seems extremely simple. It seems like base information everybody should know. And because of that, when somebody doesn't know, a lot of times they feel too embarrassed to actually ask for help to understand it. So I wanted to take the time. If you already know this, it's okay. I mean, this video is not for you. But if you felt too embarrassed to ask, or it's just really not clicking with you what part of the tape measure that you're looking at, this is here for you. And I can't stress enough how important it is. When we talk about craftsmanship, when we talk about a trained and skilled workforce, really measurements are at the heart of everything. If we cannot pull the proper dimensions and recreate what it is they need us to recreate or to fabricate, well, then we're not much of craftsmen. So this basic scale right here is at the heart of it all. It's at the heart of our fabrication. It's at the heart of our math. It's at the heart of our safety. It's at the heart of our welding. If we don't have proper fit up, we don't have proper measurements and dimensions, we're not going to be able to do anything. So on this basic scale, it's a 4 foot, and I then broke it down from there. Of course, always we're going to start at 0, and then we'll work to 1. And then, of course, right in the middle, in between 1 and 0, it's our halfway mark, or 1/2 of an inch. Simple enough. The interesting thing about fractions, and I'm going to be doing a whole series on fractions alone, is when you double the denominator, it actually cuts it in half. So if you ever have to cut any fraction in half, just double the denominator. It works on everything. 1/2 of 3/8 would be 3/16. Because the bigger this number is, it means the more smaller divisions of an inch we actually have. So if we were looking to cut 1/2 inch in half, you double that denominator and it gives us 1/4. Now if we look at just this section right here, that is 1/4. And then if we took that same exact section and we moved it right here, it's 2/4, or 1/2 inch. 2/4 and 1/2 are exactly the same. They are equal. So we know that from here to here we have 1/4, from here to here we have 2/4, and now from here to here we have 3/4 of an inch. And of course, by the time we get here, we would have 4/4, or 1 whole. So to break it down even smaller, because accuracy is very important. I've come across a lot of people who think you don't need anything under 1/4 inch. My personal experience, a lot of times that's people who can't read anything under 1/4 inch. If it says on the print it's this dimension, or if we do the math and it's that dimension, as craftsmen, that's the dimension we shoot for. Doesn't matter if it says 16ths, doesn't matter if it says quarters or halves. That's the dimension we want to hit every single time. So if we double this denominator right here on 1/4 of an inch, that 4, double it up, would turn into 8ths, which means we're now going to break this 1-inch section into 8 separate sections all the way across. So now we can just count our way back over the same exact way we did with the 1/4 inch. So if we have 1/8, then over here to the next biggest line, we would have 2/8. And 2/8 is equal to 1/4. They're exactly the same. When you start understanding the language of fractions, this becomes a lot simpler. So we have 1/8, 2/8, or 1/4, and then we have 3/8. we can count them up. 1, 2, 3. And then we all have 4/8. And obviously, 4 is half of 8, which would give us 1/2 inch. So we have 3/8, 1/2 inch, or 4/8. And then next we would have 5/8. When I'm working with students, it seems a lot of times they could get this half fairly easily. And then once we get past the halfway mark, everything just goes up into the fan. It becomes very difficult. But as long as we can keep with counting over, you can stay in place fairly easily. Not only that, you can use your 1/2 inch as your halfway mark. If we know that is 4/8, then our next 1/8 inch mark is going to be 5/8. This would be 6/8, or 3/4 of an inch, which would put us at 7/8. And then, of course, at the end, at our 1 inch mark, we would have 8/8, or 1 hole. Now, the point where I tend to lose everybody. And yeah, I understand there's some things that we can get away with getting down to an 1/8 inch. But when it comes to pulling dimensions for nut sizes for bolts and stuff like that, you want to be able to read 1/16 of an inch, absolutely. So our very first line, remember, if you want to cut any fraction in half, double the denominator, because now that makes it a smaller division of a whole. So if we doubled up 8, multiplied it times 2, it would give us 16. So what we're saying is half of 1/8 is 1/16 of an inch. And inside this hole, from 0 to 1, is 16 equal divisions. So we have 1/16, then we have 2/16. And 16 divided by 2 would be 8, or 1/8. So 1/8 is equal to 2/16. They're exactly the same. They're two different ways to say one measurement. And that's a really important thing to grasp here. So if we have 1/16, we have 2/16. Obviously next would be 3/16. And then we would have 4/16. And 16 is divisible by 4. So 4 goes into 16 4 times. And 4 goes into 4 1 time, which would give us 1/4. So 4/16 and 1/4 inch are exactly the same thing. Of course, if we have 4/4 here, that would take us to, or if we have 4/16, that would take us to 5/16. 6/16, or 3/8, and then 7/16. And I'm going to come right back to that 1 second, because next we would have 8/16. And I think the easiest way to remember 8ths and 16ths is by the next closest number to it to gauge it. So if I know that in 1 whole inch is 16/16, halfway would be 8/16. So think of it as kind of a mile marker for being able to gauge on what division of a 16th you're on. I know 1 less than 8/16, of course, would be 7/16. And I know 1 more than 8/16 would be 9/16. Like I said, your halfway point can kind of be your mile marker to re-gauge where you're at. So you don't have to start all the way at the beginning and count all the way over here to figure out where 13/16 or 11/16 would be. So 9/16, 10/16, also known as 5/8. And then we would have 11/16. And it seems to me that the number one spot that most people have is right around here. A lot of times they can't gauge where 11/16 and 13/16 have. And something that I like to do is I know that 11/16 is 1/16 less than 3/4, and 13/16 is 1/16 more than 3/4, but before 7/8. So 11/16, 12/16 is the same as 3/4 because 4 goes into both 12 and 16. So 4 goes into 12 3 times, and 4 goes into 16 4 times. So 12/16 is exactly the same, which brings us, if we have 12/16, right to 13/16. 14/16 is the same as 7/8, and if one whole is 16/16, then one less 16th from one whole would be 15/16. And of course, since all these numbers repeat themselves all the way down the tape measure, if you can really grasp this and understand this, the whole entire tape measure is completely unlocked to you. You're able to pull any applicable measurement that it is that you will need. And always remember, if whether or not you burned an inch, please always remember that. If you've burned an inch, make sure you add that in and you will have no problem at all. So if you really struggle, especially with the 8ths and the 16ths on the tape measure, go ahead and watch this video a couple of times. It really starts to make sense. There's several printouts that you can do online, and you can always keep that in your hard hat in your back pocket. It's okay not to know something, and it's okay to try to learn something. So please don't feel embarrassed, because honestly, you'll end up getting somebody hurt, or you'll end up ruining some equipment if you don't know and you don't ask. So that's why we're here. We're here to learn. Please stop by the training center anytime, and I'll sit down and I'll work with you and make sure you get the education you deserve. Thank you.